I don't have much time. Even as I'm telling you this, the inevitability of my plight is edging closer. I have to share this though. Someone must know what happened to me, and why. It all started a couple weeks ago. Maybe before that, but I'll stay on track. You see, I'm not your average young adult. A normal life always bored me. College, jobs, partying, social media. Who gives a damn? It's all the same to me. I have this fascination though, with all things paranormal, so I took it upon myself 2 years ago to join a group of ghost hunters. Sounds exciting, right? Well, it was. I jumped in headfirst into this world and haven't looked back since. Mansions, cemeteries, asylums, you name it, I explored it. My team has plenty of documented proof of ghosts and demons that will make the hair on any non-believer stand straighter than an arrow. Some of our adventure stories would even make the hardest badass quiver in a corner. That life was the ultimate rush to me, and nothing was like it. That all changed recently though. One weekend, I decided to stick around my folks' house longer than usual and spend some family time. Everything was going well, until that Sunday my parents decided to go to my grandfather's church. My dad was excited. He hadn't been to that church in years, and Mum was more than happy to oblige. So how could I say no? When we got to the church, it was an old run-down building in the middle of a forest, an unusual place for a church. My grandfather must have found and joined in his wannabe mountaineer days. It was a very small building, like one of those small-town southern churches, but this one was surrounded by forest except for the one road that leads to it. It looked like a strong gust of wind would blow it over, but yet had some sense of strength. That mostly had to do with the gargoyle over the large front door. It sat perched on its two front arms and its back legs were bent, like a lion waiting to pounce. The thing was menacing, like gargoyles are supposed to be, I guess. But this one had a face that radiated pure anger. His face had a mean scowl, and his eyes were sunken into a deep expression, like nothing I've ever seen. It also had large wings folded behind its muscular back, and I had a feeling of dread, wondering about the type of sicko it took to sculpt this monstrosity. As someone that's seen what I've seen, it shouldn't have scared me so easily. But it did. Get it together, I told myself. After all you've seen, a statue frightens you. For a moment, I caught my breath, and then a sharp pain hit my back, my dad's bearish slap adding to my embarrassment of being caught off guard by this thing. Afraid of a little stone monster, eh? He laughed. Come on, let's go inside, the service is about to begin. The service was as boring as expected, but whatever, as long as my father enjoyed it, I guess. As we left the church, I can feel eyes peering right through me from above, and I knew it wasn't just my nerves. I turned around just once before we got into the car, and caught the gaze of the gargoyle one last time before we took off. Good riddance, I said in a sarcastic voice, trying to erase my moment of weakness earlier. The next 2 days were normal, but something happened on the third day. As I got in the bed, ready to end my night, I closed my eyes, beginning to fall into a deep slumber from the exhaustion of that day. And then, I heard a terrible sound. It was a deep growl that bellowed from the corner of my bedroom, like a very large dog, but much more sinister. It was long, and lasted several seconds, like whatever made it had lungs the size of tanks on a backyard grill. The longer the growl trailed out, the more every hair on my skin stood up, and I knew instinctively the cause was not of this world. It didn't last long, but it seemed for an eternity, and I lied there petrified, with my eyes glued to the ceiling the whole time. When the growling ended, I found the nerve to peer into the corner of my room, and there it was, the silhouette of the creature just barely visible, shrouded in the darkness. But I could make out exactly what it was. The gargoyle from that church. It sat there, perched the same way in my room as it did in the building, but this time it wasn't silent. Its eyes were a bright glowing red, and they illuminated enough of its face to show me that this thing was here, in the flesh. I sat there, speechless in bewilderment, meeting the creature's intensity, neither of us making another sound. It glared hatefully at me, and I at it. Afraid to break eye contact for fear of it attacking, I locked my eyes on the gargoyle for as long as I could manage to hide every ounce of fear in me, hoping the thing was intimidated by my strong stand. I waited and waited for a pounce or a step forward, but the creature never moved a muscle. What is it doing? Is it playing with me? Testing me? Whatever I did must have worked, because the gargoyle kept his stance until it faded away, becoming more transparent each second until it was gone. I fell into my bed, mentally exhausted and relieved. Fuck, how am I going to sleep now? I laid there and peered away at the ceiling with a million thoughts running through my head of what could have possibly happened. Hours passed before sleep finally took me. The next night, it was the same thing. The gargoyle returned and remained in the corner, growling. This time it was so loud I couldn't believe no one else heard it. I was certain this thing's bellow would have awoken my parents in the house, even the next door neighbors. But nothing. This was meant for me, I deducted. Whatever I had done to bring this gargoyle to my home at night, it was my doing. It was personal. So with that realization, I got angry. You want me? Then come get me, I said, hoping to trigger some sort of reaction, realizing feigning being tough was the only defense that I had. The gargoyle lowered into a pouncing stance. I seemed to have pissed it off. His grotesque snarl widened at the sound of my offensive statement. A sick part of me wanted to push it further, out of spite for the torment. So, I faintly whispered, "Well, what are you waiting for?" The creature burned with more anger, its growl now so loud I had to cover my ears. The sound was making me dizzy, and I'm almost sure I was going to pass out, when I noticed it stopped, and the gargoyle was gone. Enough is enough, I told myself the next night. I managed to get it upset, and it gave me a little joy to know, at the very least, I can get under its skin. But I have to do something. I sat ready in my bed for the gargoyle to appear, and even got so confident as to sit at the foot of the bed, waiting for my tormentor to arrive. And like clockwork, it did. The gargoyle manifested itself in the corner, bringing a pungent stench this time along with it. It smelled horrible, like it just bathed in all sorts of unfriendly elements and burned them, just to permeate through the air. I can't take this nightmarish crap anymore, I said to myself. Just kill me now. On cue, the gargoyle did something it had never done before. It took a step towards me. I sat there, petrified in my bed. It continued to move closer from the corner of my room, and all I could do was stare. It continued to walk, each step fixing its gaze on me, making its way to one side of my bed, before circling to the other. It growled and grunted as I sat petrified beyond belief at this sudden change in activity. It stopped at the center of my bed, looked at me, and then at my door as it began to fade. Slowly it dissolved into nothing as its eyes focused on keeping the room from intrusion. I fell into my pillow, speechless and quiet. I don't know how much more I can take of this. What's next? Will it eventually rip me to shreds, drag me to hell? My time is running out, so I had to do something quick. Tonight is the last night of this. Today is going to be me or him. I'd grown sick of this thing stalking me, and I vowed one way or another to get rid of it once and for all. I'm currently standing here, in the center of my bed, crucifix in hand with the Bible, hoping it will be enough, because it's all I have. We both know you're here already, I said, just completely fed up with all this crap. Just come so we can end it all, no more. There was a silence for about 2 minutes, before a smoky apparition started appearing in the corner. Same as usual, it was here. Once it fully manifested itself, it began its hunting pattern, and I wasted no time. Through the power of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, I banish you back to the realm from which you came. Nothing. The creature continued to pace back and forth around my bed, and once again I sat there, like an idiot. I decided to repeat it several more times, each time with more emphasis and belief than before. Still nothing. After about the 45th time, The gargoyle did something that I'd never seen. It cried in pain. The yelp was like a large dog suddenly hurt by some unseen force. The gargoyle continued to cry out, but this time mixed with growls, like a dog being dragged away from something it clearly wants. This continued as beams of light shot through the creature's whole body. As it became more and more apparent I was watching its demise, the gargoyle must also have realized its own doom, because its expression had changed. In the very last moments, as it stood before me, it looked different. It had an expression of complete sadness and despair, so deep that I almost regretted banishing it. And then it was gone. I knew instinctively. It was the end. I jumped back in my head with the feeling of victory warm throughout my whole body. My joy of being out of that miserable situation suddenly empowered me, and I felt invincible. "You're not invincible," a soft male voice whispered in the opposite corner of the room. I sat up immediately. No, I've just seen the gargoyle die. What is this? It sounded different. How did it know what I just thought? A cold chill shot through me. It's not over. It is only the beginning of the end for you. This time, I counted 3 voices, each one in a different part of my bedroom. But I don't see anything. I don't like this. "It's time," said another voice. This time I was able to fixate on the area it came from in the room. Still, nothing I can see. With each breath I took, sweat poured down my head. I looked down at my hand when I realized it was shaking. No sooner than noticing this reaction, I looked up and my heart froze. A feeling of instant dread covered me as I observed my room now full of shadowy, pitch-black figures. They stood, all their eyes fixed on me, too many for me to count. The room was suddenly crowded, and the ones in the back pushed and reached their arms over the ones in the front, trying to get to me as the closest shadows leaned over my bed. Whatever these entities were, they were beyond menacing, even worse than the gargoyle. I scrambled to the wall, desperately trying to get away, but they surrounded me on all sides, nearly touching me by inches. Electricity jolted through my body at the reaction of being grabbed on my shoulder from behind. I turned around, and shadowy arms came through the wall, like prisoners through bars. What do I do? Who are they? What do they want? Why am I going through all this? So many questions ran through my head. I broke down, and the anxiety of the situation flooded over me. I curled into a tight fetal ball, which was the only thing I could do, as a realization took over that tonight I would perish as well. I began to cry as the dark hands grabbed at me when it hit me like a ton of bricks. The gargoyle. That disgusting, evil-looking creature tormenting me, making my life a living hell, wasn't doing any of that at all. My time as a paranormal hunter has finally caught up to me. Those lost souls from the places I have explored have been latching onto me this whole time, and I was blind to it. Slowly, they were building a community with one common goal: to take my soul. The feeling of my fatal mistake coursed through me as hands locked and restrained my limbs in place, making a struggle impossible. A few of the shadowy figures in front of me stepped aside, revealing a pitch-black hole, now on the floor of my room. How could I have been so dumb? The gargoyle wasn't trying to hurt me. It was trying to scare off the evil it sensed around me. The creature took it upon itself to awaken from its ancient slumber to come to my aid, and I ruined its mission. I didn't rid myself of a tormentor. I rid myself of a protector and defender, my guardian.